Do say welcome to everybody. We are glad that you're here. As I was just talking about the podiums, instead of having you come down to the communion table and pick up new lessons, on the two wood podiums, one on this side and one on this side, you can pick up the current lesson that we're working on and the very next lesson that we'll work on. So they'll always be available on those two wood podiums. We do want to say welcome to everybody. Welcome to those here in our auditorium, and we say welcome to our Facebook and YouTube audience. We appreciate you so very much. Now, I'm excited. Coming up this fall, I'm going to have a class. I don't know for sure where I'll be, either here or one of the other classrooms, but it's going to be on Genesis. In my opinion, I have never written anything noteworthy. None of my classes I would write home about, okay? I don't think I'm that great of a teacher. This is by far the best material I have ever written. I am excited. I've already written the first 7 lessons, and the more I get into it, the more excited I am. So that's coming up this fall. Also, after that, we're going to do a series of lessons on the Holy Spirit. I haven't written anything on that yet. All I have is a temporary title, a study in the Spirit of God, but that's coming sometime, I don't know when, sometime in the future. Now, we're up to story number 154. Hopefully, we will try to finish story number 154 this morning. But before we do that, I want to give you a little bonus material. I want to compare David with Jesus. You know, if you were to ask a Jewish person, who's the greatest king of all? They would say King David. As Christians, we would say King Jesus. Let's look at a comparison of David and Jesus. First off, David. David was betrayed by a close friend. It was his main advisor. When his son Absalom took the throne from him, that was made possible by the treachery of a close friend. Jesus was also betrayed by a close friend. Remember, the 12 plus what? Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. They were the friends of Jesus. Number 2, it says in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 16, that David, when he was fleeing from Jerusalem, it says that he went forth from Jerusalem. That's what Jesus did. John 18, verse 1. Furthermore, in 2 Samuel, it says that David crossed the Kidron Valley right here, the Kidron Valley that separated the city from the Mount of Olives. Well, Jesus crossed the Kidron, John 18, verse 1. What did David do? He went to the Mount of Olives, very much in prophecy in the Old Testament, and he prayed. As we discovered Wednesday night, Jesus prayed on the Mount of Olives. Furthermore, what happened to that main advisor to David, the one that betrayed him? He hangs himself. He hung himself and died. Well, what did Judas do? Well, we know. He hung himself. You see, there's so much comparison between David and Jesus. Jesus was that ultimate king. So much symbolism right there. Let's continue on. A little bit more bonus. I had some folks ask me, what about this cave? You remember I mentioned that when Jesus went to the garden, we don't know exactly where he was in the garden. I would propose to you that there's a very good chance that Jesus left the 8 apostles, other than Peter, James, and John. He left them in this cave that's right below the garden. If you enter into the garden, There's a cave here, and then there's an olive grove on top. I think Jesus very likely left his 8 apostles in that cave. Now do keep in mind, they have added, okay, this right here, that's been added. That's not natural. That's a column that put in there to hold up the top of the cave. This floor here is not natural. They added that to make it more convenient. Of course, the chairs, that's all added. But I think it's very likely that Jesus left his 8 apostles in from the cold. Remember Peter, he warmed himself by the fire. It's cold in April in Jerusalem at that altitude. You see, Jesus always took care of his people. Jesus always took care of his people. Now, where are we? We've had Jesus arrested. Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane right here. He is arrested by the angry mob. Remember, we have a little bit of overkill. They bring out a large detachment to arrest Jesus because, Jesus, he did all those miracles. No telling what he might do. He might fight back. Jesus was not going to fight back. Jesus was going to fulfill prophecy. But they brought this large detachment of soldiers with them. They arrested Jesus. And they take Jesus to the house of the high priest. We don't know for sure where that house was located. There is a fairly high probability it was located right here, close to Herod the Great's palace, where we believe that Pilate is residing during the feast days. Now, what would that house would have looked like? Well, it was a palace. It would look nice. The high priest family was the most powerful family in Jerusalem. Annas and his 5 sons and 1 grandson and 1 son-in-law, Caiaphas, controlled the high priesthood for over 60 years. A long time to control the priesthood. Now, we're now entering the Jewish trials. Jesus will go through 3 Jewish religious trials, and he'll go through 3 government trials. Before Pilate, before Herod Antipas, and then back to Pilate. But let's talk today just about the Jewish trials. They were in a hurry. Now, why were they in a hurry? Because they want to get Jesus on the cross before the hillbilly Galilean Jews wake up and come into the city. Remember, the Galilean Jews are there for the Passover, and the Galilean Jews are the main supporters of Jesus, not the Jerusalem Jews, those ignorant, hillbilly Galilean Jews. So we got to get Jesus on the cross before they can come in and incite a riot and rescue Jesus. So to do so, they're going to have to break some rules. In fact, they're going to have to break some major rules. I did a sermon years ago. It was called The 21 Rules Broken During the Trial of Jesus. I'm not going to list all 21, okay? I'm just going to list the big ones. Here are the big ones that they broke. Number 1, Jesus was arrested how? Through a bribe. Remember, Judas was paid that 30 pieces of silver? That's blood money. That's breaking a rule. Number 2, he was arrested, guess this, he was arrested without a clear charge. They arrested Jesus without a clear charge. Jewish law prohibited that. Jewish law erred on the side of the individual. You've heard, innocent until proven guilty. Where does that concept start? Right here with the Jewish people. They believed in innocence until proven guilty. So he was arrested without a clear charge. Number 4, trials could not be held at night or on feast days. Now, there were a few exceptions to that rule, but Jesus, his trial did not engage any of those exceptions. So they're breaking a rule. They used physical force to try to intimidate Jesus during the trial. They slapped him. You don't do that in a Jewish trial. They had false witnesses that offered conflicting testimony. You don't do that in a Jewish trial. You know why? Because if you offered false testimony in a trial, they could then charge you with the original charge of the person being prosecuted. In other words, if their neck was on the line, suddenly your neck is on the line. So false witnesses, that was something that didn't happen in a Jewish trial. The witnesses were not supposed to testify in the presence of each other. Never in the presence of each other, because that way they could get their stories straight, they could get their story straight. Well, you don't do that. The Sanhedrin had a very unique way of doing a trial. In your mind, picture 3 semicircles of chairs. Okay, semicircle 1, semicircle 2, and then semicircle 3. And they were positioned so that each person could see over the shoulder of the person in front of them. So you did not sit directly behind the head of the person in front of you. Plus also the chairs were elevated. The 70 members of the Sanhedrin, along with the high priest, make 71, they would sit in those 3 semicircles. The person on trial, he was supposed to sit right here facing his accusers. This does not happen in this trial. Jesus is not allowed to sit. Jesus, furthermore, was asked to incriminate himself. They kept on saying, hey, ask him questions. They're trying to incriminate him. Plus, Jesus was not given an opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses. The high priest, he was supposed to ask for a vote. And each person in those 3 semicircles would stand up and they would voice their vote looking at the accused. The high priest never asked for that official counting of everybody. He did it by voice, total voice. He didn't go by the actual individual voting. The charges that they had in the Jewish trial, they changed when they went to the Roman trial because they knew that their charges would not hold water with Pilate. And then last but not least, Jesus was convicted and executed the same day. You never did that because what if they made a mistake? So they never would execute the person that was convicted on the same day. You had at least a day minimum between the conviction and the execution. But they can't do that with Jesus because we got to get Jesus on that cross before those hillbilly Galilean Jews come in here. So Jesus goes through this, I call it a kangaroo trial. This is the reconstructed house that many people believe was the house of the high priest. We're not for sure, but a lot of folks believe that. It's in the right place. It certainly is nice. Let's look at a breakdown of that house. I want to point out to you, because we're going to be eventually talking about the denials of Peter. I want you to notice the courtyard here. the courtyard, okay? You've got the rooms, that's true, but you got this big courtyard. That's where Peter will do his denials of Jesus. Let's look at Jesus before Annas. John 18. John 18, verse 12. Then the detachment of troops and the captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus. They did that in the garden. They bound him. They got all these soldiers. We got to watch this guy, Jesus. We got to have all these soldiers around. And they led him away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. Now it was Caiaphas who advised the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. Annas served as high priest from AD 6 to AD 15. Now the full years, because he was appointed in late AD 6, he was removed in early AD 15. The full years are 7 to 14, okay? Even though he was supposed to serve for life. Now, he was kind of different because he was very young when he was appointed. Who appointed him? Notice, AD 6. What happened in AD 6? Go back to our first set of lessons in this series. That's when Rome took over in Jerusalem. Rome governed all of Judea and Galilee, but they had given Herod the Great's kingdom to his 3 sons. Herod Antipas got the Galilee, Herod Philip got the Decapolis, and Herod Archelaus got Jerusalem. That was in 4 BC. But in 6 AD, Rome decided to remove Archelaus. A lot of complaints on Archelaus. He was kind of difficult. They removed Archelaus and they appointed what Rome called a prefect. The people of Jerusalem called a governor. They appointed a Roman prefect to lead them. Now, when they did that, we got to have some kind of control over these Jews here in Jerusalem. We got to have some kind of control over them. So the best way to control them, we're going to control them through what? The high priest. Well, if we're going to control them through the high priest, we better have our fingers right around that guy's neck. We better have him under control. So they elected Annas to be the guy. His family was wealthy. He was the first one from his family to serve as high priest. He was removed in early 15 AD. He was at the age of 36. He was removed by the current procurator, the current prefect, Varius Gratus. Why was he removed? He had the gall to kill somebody. He had the gall to execute somebody. You see, only Rome could do that. Now, they did kind of turn a blind eye. If someone violated, remember those signs I showed you? Don't you cross over Gentiles into the temple area, because if you do, your life may be taken from you. If someone did that, the Roman governor would, he would kind of turn a blind eye. He would let them execute someone like that. But all other executions had to be cleared by the Roman governor, the Roman prefect. Annas had the gall to kill somebody in late 14 AD. No, can't do that. So he removes Annas, and eventually Caiaphas, his son-in-law, takes over in 18 AD. Now, Annas, he would not have liked Jesus at all. Because, number one, remember the 2 temple cleansings? That would have impacted Annas' family tremendously. Because guess who got the profit off of the selling of sacrificial animals, off of the changing of money? Guess who got the money, the profit from that? It was Annas, his family. The trial is held at probably Annas' palace, which across the courtyard, Caiaphas would have probably lived. That was probably where Caiaphas was. Remember that picture? There was two sides of that palace. Caiaphas has already stated that Jesus must die. In John 11, after we have the resurrection of Lazarus, Caiaphas said, hey, Jesus must die. So, we got the trial before Annas. What happens here? He's going to ask Jesus some questions. He's going to ask Jesus some questions. In fact, let's go back just real quickly here. Let's look at those questions. Verse 19, chapter 18 of John. The high priest, this is Annas, the former high priest, who still had the title in the minds of the people, then asked Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. What's he doing? He's searching for some incriminating evidence. Jesus answered him, I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in synagogues and in the temple where the Jews always meet, and in secret I have said nothing. Why? Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. Indeed, they know what I said. Jesus says, I'm an open book. Nothing secret about me. And when he had said these things, one of the officers who stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand. That was a tremendous insult to a Jewish man, to be struck in the mouth with someone's hand. You don't do that to someone on trial. He said, do you answer the high priest like that? Jesus answered him, if I've spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. Just show me where I spoke evil. Show me where I did wrong. But if well, why do you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. That's our first Jewish trial. It's basically just to bide time and to what? Until Caiaphas can round up his yes guys. You see, while Annas is doing his dirty work, his son-in-law is doing his dirty work. He subpoenas a number of false witnesses. When Annas' interview ends, when that part of the trial ends, Jesus is transported most likely across the courtyard to Caiaphas, or Caiaphas, whatever you want to call him. The false witnesses, what do they bring up? Well, they bring up an incident about rebuilding the temple in 3 days. And of course, the second cleansing of the temple, which was fresh in everyone's mind. In a moment, we're going to talk about blasphemy. But first, let's look at John chapter 2. John chapter 2, let's look at what really happened. Because they're making a mountain out of a molehill. Let's notice what happened here. John 2:19. Let's back it up to verse 18. So the Jews answered and said to him, what sign? When you say sign in the book of John, cross out sign and write in miracle. What miracle? What miracle do you show to us since you do these things? Prove it. Jesus answered and said to them, destroy this temple. Notice how he says that. It's missing the subject. What's implied? You destroy the temple. You're going to destroy the temple. You're going to kill me. Okay? You're going to kill me. I'm not going to kill myself. It's not going to be suicide. You destroyed the temple. That subject is implied here in the Greek. You destroyed this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. He's talking about the resurrection. But these false witnesses, what do? They make an accusation. Well, he's talking about destroying the temple. Never. Never. You destroy this temple, and I will raise it up. And then, of course, as I've already said, they can remember what happened just a few days prior on Monday. Now remember, this is what we would call early Friday. That's what we would call it, early Friday. What time is this? It's after midnight probably. It's probably before 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning that they're doing this. They're going to eventually charge Jesus with blasphemy. What's blasphemy? It's elevating yourself in the place of God. It's saying, hey, I'm God. It's saying that I've got the attributes of God. It's saying, hey, I'm just as important as God. That's blasphemy for any human to say that. But keep in mind, Jesus was not just human. He's the Son of Man, true, human. He's also the Son of God. He is divine. Did Jesus accept the charge of divinity? Yes, he did. You know, here in the trial, he's going to eventually, yes, I am the Son of God. He's going to attribute Psalm chapter 110, verse 1 to himself. And that's a clear messianic prediction. And he's going to say, that's me. I'm the guy. Did Jesus violate? Is he guilty of blasphemy? No. Because if you are the Son of God, it's not blasphemy. If I was to say I'm the Son of God, if I was to say I'm God, well, that's blasphemy because I'm not. But Jesus was. So it's not a violation. Let's now get to story number 155. We're ready for story number 155. We are now in, as I said, we're in Friday, our Friday early morning. It's between probably midnight and 4, probably, I'm going to say around 2 or 3, okay, in the morning that these events are going to take place. We need to talk about Peter's denials. As you came into the auditorium off of those 2 wooden podiums, you picked up a sheet of paper. That sheet of paper is important because I always hear skeptics who say, well, the gospel writers, they messed up. You look at the denials of Peter and they're in the wrong order from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all talk about this event. And they're in the wrong order, and they got different people saying the accusations and different ways of Peter responding, so they don't agree. There's a Greek word for that, accusation. Ready? You're going to learn Greek here. Baloney, that's the Greek word. Because there is no discrepancy. If you would, look at your sheet that I've had posted there. Look at that sheet. Answers to the accusation of alleged discrepancies in the timeline of Peter's denial. And what we're going to do here is we're going to actually look at these. Scott, I'm going to have you be my Matthew guy. Every time we come to Matthew, I need you to stand up and in your loudest voice, so everyone can hear, I need you to read the passage. John, you're going to be my Mark guy, okay? You're going to be my Mark guy. And I want you to stand up in your loudest voice and read the passage that I referred to. Okay, let's go over here. Alan, will you be my Luke guy? Okay, will you be my Luke guy? Okay, every time we come to Luke, I'm going to look to you and have you read the passage from Luke. Ed, you're going to be John, okay? You're my favorite writer, okay? I love John. So you're going to be my John guy, okay? Now, there are two main accusations. Accusation number one, how many times did the rooster crow? According to Matthew chapter 26, verse 34, what does it say? Stand up, please, and read that. Matthew 26, verse 34.
Jesus said to him, "Surely I say to you, that this night before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times."
Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. How many times did he say? Well, he said the rooster crows. Did you notice he didn't say number of times? He just said crows. Let's look at Mark. John, if you don't mind, I should have had you read John, I'm sorry. But John, you're going to read Mark 14, verse 30.
And Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto thee, that this day, even in this night, before the cock crows twice, thou shalt deny me 3 times."
Mark tells us it's the second crow before he crows the second time. If you read Luke, Luke's account agrees with Matthew. So we're going to say, what's up with that? It's quite simple. Mark, who probably was very heavily influenced by Peter, when Mark did his book, we think that Peter had a lot of influence with Mark in the writing of the Gospel of Mark. Remember, Luke says in the book of in the book of Acts, chapter 1, he says that he did the research to write the book of Acts. Well, Mark, all the guys did some research. Mark's research, we think, was heavily influenced by Peter. So Mark gives us the full details. Matthew says crows, but didn't tell us how many times the rooster crows. But Mark goes ahead and says, hey, it's 2 times. By a show of hands, how many have had the joy of having a rooster? How many times did your rooster crow each morning? Answer, multiple times. My bedroom on the farm, we didn't have air conditioning, no air conditioning. So we held the windows up, and my bed was close to my window because I wanted that breeze, I'm going to keep cool. My bedroom was only probably about 75, maybe 80 yards from the chicken house. Now, I had a chicken. Her name was Henrietta. As a little boy, I named her. She was a good chicken, okay? She was a good chicken. That rooster I hated I just hated that rooster. When we finally killed him and served him on Sunday dinner, I had a lot of joy eating that rooster. Because he would start crowing. They would crow way before the actual sun came up. Now, some of you city slickers think that the rooster only crows when the sun comes up. You are wrong. Roosters start crowing before the sun comes up. I would start hearing that rooster around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and he would keep on until about 5:30, 6 o'clock. He would crow multiple times. There is no contradiction over Matthew and Luke as compared to Mark. Matthew and Luke just says crows, but they don't mention the number. But Mark helps us out, probably influenced by Peter himself, and said, Peter said, it's 2 times. Put in 2 times right there. So the rooster crows 2 times. Crowing 2 times is crowing. Matthew and Luke, you got it right. Now, we've already determined, go back to lesson 144, we've already determined that probably this is AD 30. Now, I grew up thinking it was AD 33. There's probably more evidence, as we talked about, that this is happening in AD 30. Either way, if it's AD 33, it's April the 7th on our calendar. If it's AD 30, it's April the 2nd on our calendar. When do roosters start crowing that time of the year? Between 3:30 and 4 is the most likely time. Okay, I got it. Let's see if we have any questions. You still got time to send in some questions, and I can cover those. Now, what is so significant about the second crow? You see, Jesus is making it easy for the Jewish Christians to remember this event. He's making it easy for the Jewish Christians to remember this event. According to their legends, this is not in the Bible, this is not gospel, this is a Jewish legend. According to their legend, they believe that the forces of evil were out during the night. And those forces of evil would stay around until what? The third crowing of the rooster. Notice this happens before the third crowing of the rooster. Remember in John, what did I say about John? John uses the image of darkness, of night, to represent evil. You know, Judas left to betray him. It was night. Okay? It was night. Darkness. Evil. The third crowing, according to their legend, this is just a legend, not gospel. The third crowing ushered out the evil, and then the good could come back in. The denial of Peter happens before that third crowing. Happens before that third crowing. Now, what happens next? Look at your outline here. Look at your outline. Peter was admitted to the outer courtyard after John spoke to the outer gatekeeper. Let's read John chapter 18. We would please stand up, verse 15 and 16.
Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. Surely you are not another of this man's disciples, the girl at the door asked. He replied, I am not. It was cold, and the servants and officials stood outside around a fire there that they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself.
Okay. The original word here that is used, it looks like there's two doorkeepers. There's probably an outside doorkeeper who's a guy, Muscles, he keeps all the riffraff away from the house of the high priest. But the more important doorkeeper is the woman that's on the inside of the gate. So there's probably an outside doorkeeper who is male. Then there's probably an inside doorkeeper who's definitely female, okay? Now, question. We're going to end right here. We're going to resume Wednesday, Lord willing, at this point. Why? Why was John allowed in? John was already in. Why was he allowed in? Answer, we do not know for sure. Let me give you two possible answers. Two possible answers. Number one, they ate fish in Jerusalem. How many lakes do you have around Jerusalem? Answered 0. Where did all their fish come from? The Sea of Galilee up north. Remember when James and John followed Jesus? It says they left their father and the servants. James and John, their family, they got money. They got servants. They're not some one-horse fisherman operation. They've got servants that serve them. In other words, John's family was rich. How do you get rich? By selling your fish. Well, the people of Galilee can get their own fish. So where are you going to get money? You're going to sell your fish to the people who don't have fish. That's the people back in Jerusalem. So number one, very quickly here. Number one, probably John had sold fish to the household of the high priest. Number two, John's family came from a priestly family. How do we know that? Because John and Jesus, it looks like, were cousins. And in being cousins, remember, they are related to Elizabeth. And who was Elizabeth? That was, she was the one married to the priest. She was the mother of John the Baptist. He was a priest. So, in other words, John's family were priestly family. They would have had that connection for the priesthood. So why was John allowed in? Well, probably because he may have sold fish to the household of the high priest, and also he is from a priestly family. He's got that connection. Thank you so much. We will resume right there, Lord willing, on Wednesday. Thank you.